Hey, what's up everyone? This is Kevin from BFB, and I'm just chilling outside by the lake today. It's a really nice day in the Bay Area, and I want to get you guys some of these cool, unique backgrounds on every intro and outro shot of these videos I do, so I hope you really enjoy them. But anyways, I'm excited to welcome you back to another episode of Real Talk on Crypto Coins, where we cover the hottest and most controversial coins as requested by you guys, our community. So if you're part of our Facebook group, we do a poll every single time, and the top vote getter gets covered on the next episode. So for this episode number 3, we're going to be covering IOTA. And with full disclosure, this is one that I've been a long time supporter of, and I own quite a bit of it as well. But since this is Real Talk, I have to give my unbiased review of it, and so I'm going to be covering the good and the bad without shilling and no FUD as well. So of course you can have your own opinion and disagree with me. So if you do, or if you think I'm biased, please leave me a comment below and let me know what exactly you think I got wrong, and I'll definitely take a look and rethink my position. But enough of keeping you waiting, let's get down to business and dive right in. Okay, now here we go. Season 1, Episode 3 on IOTA. And I want to try to keep this one short and sweet as always, but it's probably going to be a little bit longer than the previous 2 episodes because there's a lot of points I want to explain in detail about why I included them in either the good or the bad categories. And if you're curious, this is a picture of David, one of their founders, that I decided to include on this intro slide. So for those of you who don't know, what is IOTA? Well, it's a digital ledger for the Internet of Things. That means it has a protocol, which is a set of rules, which tells you like how transactions can take place, and also a digital currency, which is the IOTA coin, IOTA token, whatever you want to call it. And their idea is to build the backbone that will allow machines to send data and money to each other. So the machine-to-machine economy is what they call it. And they use a different data structure instead of blockchain that they call the Tangle. And this is a DAG, which is directed acyclic graph. You can go take a look at that more by maybe Googling it yourself. So in order to send a transaction, you have to do a small amount of proof of work to validate 2 past transactions that already occurred. So your transaction points backwards to 2 other transactions. So everyone is participating in achieving network consensus, not just a centralized group of miners like in the Bitcoin world. So IOTA was introduced in 2014, but they held a crowd sale in late 2015 to kind of get more funds for development purposes, and 100% of all IOTA was issued at that time. And it's really important to note that this project is still in beta stage, and the developers and founding team themselves have said this many times as well. So they don't claim this to be a completed, polished project yet. So let's take a look at some of the good things about IOTA. Well, first, there are many benefits in terms of using the Tangle instead of the blockchain. I'm not going to go into each of these in detail because they will take a long time, so I'll just list them out and you can take a closer look as to what they mean exactly and why they are beneficial. So first of all, it's infinitely scalable because rather than having to wait for each block to complete before you can place the next one, you can kind of process things in parallel by having each transaction point to 2 prior ones. It's also more energy efficient because the proof of work you do is really tiny, and it's not like the really massive computational problem that Bitcoin requires you to solve. It also is good for microtransactions because it's fast and feeless, and decentralized mining like I mentioned earlier, and also they use a different kind of algorithm so that it's quantum resistant, and when quantum computers come to fruition, it's going to be harder to crack the hashes as compared to the ones used in other coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. The IOTA Foundation also has a lot of partnerships that I personally really like, and they recently announced a data marketplace initiative that has some big name participants. You can go take a look online about who is participating. I'm not going to cover every one of them, but they do have some really big names and some really cool stuff coming out of that initiative. They also have a really strong technical team, which I'm always a huge fan of in this crypto space. One of their co-founders, Sergey, invented Nextcoin, which is still in the top 100 coins of CoinMarketCap.com, and it was the first 100% proof-of-stake coin out there. Pretty impressive in my book. They're also constantly hiring more mathematicians and cryptographers to help them improve the IOTA protocol. And so they're not just sitting pat with their existing talent, they're constantly expanding, and they're constantly making announcements to the crypto space about people who they've brought in. They have a good product market fit, in my opinion. There have not been too many coins in this Internet of Things space, so they're in a good space, and I feel like it's a great fit for cryptocurrencies to use for machines when they communicate and transact with each other. And finally, they have consistent media coverage in terms of relatively well-known publications writing about IOTA and their progress, new partnerships, and so forth. Always important in this crypto space to constantly keep the public, your retail investors, up to date about what you're doing and the progress that you're making. Now on to the bad part. They're currently centralized via the coordinator, which means that they have this coordinator entity which kind of makes sure that the transactions happen as they're supposed to and any bad actors are stopped. And of course in the crypto world we want decentralization, and the team has said that they're going to eventually remove the coordinator when the network is ready. But that's still not the case right now, and we don't know quite yet when that's going to happen, so we just have to take their word for it so far as to the fact that it's going to be eventually removed to increase decentralization. They also created their own hash function called the curl P with a built-in vulnerability for copy protection purposes. And they said they did this so that scammers can't just copy IOTA and use it to kind of scam people out of their funds. Instead, they put in this vulnerability so that they can attack people who take their protocol and try to do something bad with it. This caused a lot of hoopla in the space because there's people who question on a philosophical level if they should have done that. But alas, they have their own reasons for doing so, and now they've reverted back to the industry standard because it was discovered by the MIT research team, and now there's no point to use this anymore now that people know there's a vulnerability. So they reverted back to industry standard, and they've answered these concerns on their detailed blog posts on their website, and I've read it in full, and personally I'm convinced of their reasoning about why they chose to do this, but alas, there are legitimate philosophical reasons about why they shouldn't have done this, so that's why I included this in the bad section. And of course, just limitations of DAG in general. First of all, it's not good for generalized smart contracts like the ones you have in Ethereum because it's difficult to determine transaction order. In the blockchain approach, you have blocks that come one after the other. Pretty clear and easy to understand which one came first in terms of transactions. But in terms of the Tangle, where they have parallel processed things, it's really hard to do so, and it really requires a second layer approach, which is something that they're working on as well. Furthermore, because it's feeless, they have less incentive to run full nodes, which is what's required to make sure that the transactions are valid and the Tangle progresses. Because in the Bitcoin world, in order to kind of encourage people to run full nodes, they get rewarded in Bitcoin for every node that they mine and validate and place on the blockchain. None of that happens in terms of these DAG coins. So there needs to be other reasons, like you have a lot of coins, so you have incentive to make sure that the network runs properly, or you are an exchange, for example, and you want to be able to put out transactions back and forth a lot. In those cases, you might want to run a full node. And of course, everyone knows the wallet needs much improvement. It's still really hard to use right now, and oftentimes you see a zero balance in it and you freak out, and you have to go through a process to get that balance to reappear. So they are working on the Trinity wallet, which is supposed to come out relatively soon in 2018, hopefully. And that is supposed to be a great user experience and fix a lot of these user-caused problems with IOTA in general. And also, finally, they have admittedly handled PR in quite an unprofessional way. As an IOTA supporter, I can admit this. and there's been like misunderstandings about their Microsoft partnership, the MIT group's critique, and just general community criticism. Now, I know that some of these are unfair critiques and just general FUD, but regardless, they don't have to stoop down to the level and just get really defensive about it and attack other people as well. You can still stay professional in terms of responding to these people, whether or not they are professional in and of itself. And I feel like this is really important when institutional investors decide which coins to invest in, right? They want utter professionalism when it comes to leadership. So I think that this is something that they can work on. So would I personally invest? And this is something that I always cover in these Real Talk episodes. And always not financial advice, just my personal opinion. And so the answer is, of course, yes, because I have already. But I wouldn't consider it a blue chip coin as of right now. So if your portfolio is just focused on blue chip coins like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, or even Monero, then I wouldn't group IOTA in the same category as of right now. Because I always consider this a boom or bust pick. The potential to become as innovative and disruptive as the next Bitcoin, but also a chance to fail because it's in the early beta stages right now, like Ethereum and Bitcoin were back in the day. It's of course a very ambitious project with a lot of remaining deliverables, so we'll have to wait to see if they can deliver on what their promises were. They've made good progress so far, but can they deliver and improve on their weaknesses is the big question. It's not a finished product, so of course they can always figure out their weaknesses and build on top of that. The final question I want to take a look at is it/was it overvalued? Well, in my opinion, it was heavily overvalued at like a $10 billion market cap, but current prices are a little bit more reasonable in my personal opinion. So if you're looking for an entry point, now might be a decent time at these roughly $1 levels as compared to the $5 levels it was at previously. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoyed that video and found it very informative. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts down below, and also let me know which coin you want me to cover next. And subscribe if you haven't already to catch future episodes on this Real Talk series that I want to do very, very often. This is Kevin, and I'll see you next time.